Boom, 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 and boom. According to that, I am live. Welcome. This is Tokyo Tonight. My name is Hiko Simon. It's good to see you all. Just adjusting the mic. In fact, let's not put that there. Let's put it there. Good to see you all. How's it going? My name is Hiko Simon. This is Tokyo Tonight. It's the lighting's a little bit different to normal at the moment because I was like destroying my neck looking up vertically at the comments every time. I sort of did a bit of a rearrangement here, and yes, because I plugged in a different monitor, it caused everything to sort of go wrong. Just checking the audio. Yes, sound is working. Everything is working. It's good to see. We already have some people in here. Erin, good to see you. Yeah, I know that you're sleepy. I appreciate you making it, Erin. And of course, good to see Shubhas as well, our man in Panama, standing by. Hope you're having a nice cup of coffee there. We've got Thomas Morris. Good to see you. Kerberos Tenshi. It's funny, Erin. I know it's late for Erin, but it's like 4:30 in the morning, I think, for Kerberos Tenshi. So I do appreciate you coming in from Germany, and everybody else who comes in. Do remember to say hello. I do appreciate it. Yes, I am here. How long am I into this day now? It's actually getting into April. So that's like fully 2 months. It's coming up on the second month out of 5 months. So it's racing by the time in America, actually. But yeah, it's been great. It's kind of funny. I mean, Seattle, it's still just as cold and just as dark as it was when I got here in February. Still finding things to do. I went and actually I watched a Seattle Seawolves game from actually inside an athletic club thing with the supporters club today. It was really good. It was a really good game. So just finding little bits and pieces to do. I didn't go anywhere this weekend. I think last weekend. Yeah, I've been really busy like each weekend running a half marathon and then like doing a 5 hour drive and getting the car back with 3 minutes to spare was kind of enough excitement for one weekend. So I'm easing it back a little bit for this week. It still is cool here. I am enjoying my time here. And I'll probably, as I said, I'll probably take June off. I haven't made any other plans for other trips yet at the moment. As in Japan as anywhere else in the Northern Hemisphere, cherry blossoms are out, even though it is kind of cold here, but I went and enjoyed that a little bit this week. So yeah, we've got Sadiq. Good to see you, Sadiq. Hello West Coast, hello East Coast. Our man in Florida. Believe in yourself. Getting hyped up for the upcoming Pulse Chain launch. I don't understand what Pulse Chain is, but peanuts. Yes, that is what I work for. Likes and peanuts. By the way, it always disturbs me. I always hesitate to say that now because if you ever hear Japanese people saying that word and how it gets pronounced slightly differently and the confusion that can lead to. Yes, but that's right. Thank you. Hope everybody is doing good. Anyway, it's been, last week was nuts, actually. I ran. Last week was really insanely fast. My legs were messed up for days from that. But 1 hour 34. Someone said if you ran just a little bit faster and twice, it'd be a 3 hour marathon. But I would have been in hospital if I'd run even 1 more kilometer. I was running way too fast, actually. But it was great. It was great. So, anyway, I'm digging it. John Carlo Illinois, our man from the Philippines. Good to have you in here. Great to see people rocking it, as always. Do remember to hit those likes. Wow. Actually, it's funny that see when Aaron's in the chat, the likes just everybody remembers to click their likes. That's great. Jay's M from Japan now. So much to figure out. Well, I've been in Japan for just past my 24th Japan anniversary, and I'm still figuring it out. So that's the fun of the place. There's always stuff to figure out. But definitely in the beginning, yes, I remember what that was like. I've kind of gone through a bit of the reverse of it, I guess, coming to where I am at the moment. That's definitely all part of the fun. Yeehaw! We've got Odie Jr. You missed last week, but back now. Bada bing, bada boom, boom, boom. Yes, good to have you, Odie Jr. Last week was nuts. Last week, Project X1 was nuts. It was just, I think I try to stay too busy a little bit almost. And it's good. It's good. I'm doing things. Honestly, I'm doing things I don't normally do in Japan. I think just the fact that I'm here, and I'm on a limited time means that I'm signing up for every adventure going, and it's cool. But and I think I would like to do some more. I really want to do a proper trail run, but again, I just want it to be just a little bit warmer here. But yeah, Rainbow, oi! Is that a Yiddish oi or an Australian oi? But good to see you. Thomas Morris, of course, our man from Philadelphia. Yes, and yeah, Odie Jr. was indeed missed, as was Aaron, although not late, I was late for you. So I'm glad to hear it looks like you watched the recording. Oh yeah, one bit of big news, which I've got in the topics for tonight. A lot of people have been asking for a long time for a podcast, and I've always thought, oh, it should be so easy to just, the audio, the MP3 file is embedded in the streaming YouTube videos. So this should be really easy to do a podcast for. Yet the podcasting hosts are not free like YouTube is, and they force you to strip out the audio file and put on a thumbnail and do things. And it always struck me as, YouTube will let you upload 8K resolution videos and all the storage and so on, yet they won't host like audio podcasts, which is like, when I'm running, I listen to a lot of videos like podcasts. Because I pay for YouTube Premium, I can listen to it in the background. So without the video, I do that. I listen to audio only, for videos, which is basically podcast listening anyway. So why not just allow the connectivity to allow you to listen to it? If people want to listen to Apple Podcasts in their car or while they're jogging or whatever, why not enable YouTube videos to do that? I've been saying this actually for more than 10 years, even to YouTube people. And clearly they didn't listen to me, but someone eventually got the same idea. And YouTube has announced that they have actually, now they're allowing people to create playlists, which you can configure, which they will which you configure as a podcast, which will works immediately in YouTube Music, which nobody uses. But they say that they're going to enable the settings of that to work with with Apple Podcasts and other podcast providers like Spotify and so on. So I've set one of those up. I actually went and put all the recent videos for Tokyo Tonight into that. As much as I like to have all the comments and engagement here, there have always been enough people who have been asking for a podcast version of this, and the extra labor just made it a little bit tough on weeks when I was busy. It was hard to keep going. But if it's by default, and if it's just a matter of me adding each video to a podcast, which I think I can do automatically, I've set that up. So hopefully very soon this will be available in podcast instantly, as soon as the show is done. So that should help. Hopefully, anyway. Sachifu, good to see Sachifu. In fact, good to see more people coming in here. We've got Aaron, you need to rent more cars. The story's after, hilarious. I feel it. Well, yes, I unintentionally got the Dodge Charger, and that was awesome. I definitely still need to rent a Tesla, which I know I can get from Hertz, but it looks like I have to go down to the airport to get that. But when I go to Oregon, when I go to the Goonies trip, which I'm totally going to do, probably in a couple of weeks from now, definitely going to get a Tesla. I also have got my eye on Turo. There's a car sharing site called Turo where you can actually, people lend out cars. And there's some person near Seattle who has a BMW i8, which to me is one of the most awesome looking spaceship type sports cars ever made. It's kind of old now, but I've had my eye on this. So I've got my bucket list of cars I want to drive. But there again, I seem to be getting the most success every time I go for Korean hatchbacks. So, although it's going to happen. The moment I start doing that with the expectation of getting updated, I'm totally just going to end up with Korean hatchbacks. Not that there's anything wrong with that sort of thing, but the crazy upgrade stories will definitely end. But 10:45 NYC. Very glad that you could make it, Sainted Sir. Sachifu, good to see you, Sachifu. Really cool, by the way. I did like the electronic epic synthesizer sound that you made, and it's cool to hear that you're getting into Ableton. One of the side gigs, one of the projects I've been doing here is at my work, there's a group of sort of producers, and I haven't done anything. I've got my keyboard with me here, and I haven't made anything since I got here. But I did think, I had this illusion that I would have all this extra time. I really believed that somehow I'd have extra time being here on my own, but it turns out my life is already pretty busy. But I love that you're learning Ableton. That's really awesome. And I do appreciated the offer of help with the setup, and no rush on that. But your music is pretty cool. John Carlo Lenoy, am I native in New Zealand? I am a New Zealander. I'm from New Zealand. Am I native in New Zealand is a complex question. I'm a New Zealand citizen, born in New Zealand, so I'm okay that way. New Zealand, of course, has indigenous people, Maori people, who arrived in New Zealand generally about 600 years before everybody else. before Europeans and others came into New Zealand. I have no Maori in me, which is a shame. A lot of New Zealanders, a pretty high percentage of people in New Zealand have some Maori, but I do not. So I'm not like I'm not a. We don't typically. It's a bit outdated to call Indigenous people native, but if that's what you mean, I am not. But I wish I was. But I am a Kiwi, although I'm a half Australian. I've got little bits of everything. So there you go. Sachifu, you're welcome. I'm glad. I'm glad. I mean, I don't know. It was a total shot in the dark. My pronunciation could have been horrifically wrong. I'm glad it was correct. Thomas Morris grew up in Sydney with his stepbrother Jordan Mialata or Myalata. Mylata. You know, I've just realized I keep pronouncing that wrong. I did not grow up in Sydney. I grew up near Melbourne. I spent a lot of time growing up in Victoria. I've never lived in Sydney, actually, although Sydney is beautiful. I love Sydney. Turo is the ideal way to be able to drive many desirable cars. Yeah, it seems like it. I just sorted out signing up for it the other week, although it turns out that budget rent-a-car hatchback seems to do the job. Anyway, I'm mindful it's 20 past, and we should start jumping into it. Oh, Cubase. You're running Cubase, Shivas. Nice. You're getting into the digital audio workstations. So Sachifu is doing Ableton, which I think if I was going to pick one now, I'd probably pick Ableton, but Cubase is really deep. That's awesome. Aaron's got to get some sleep early tomorrow. You have a fantastic week yourself, Aaron. I'm really glad that you made it. So yeah, have a good week. And I'm going to dive into the topics. The first topic is a topic that I was already talking about. Oh, by the way, this also reminds me, last week I noticed for the first time that the AI, it turns out that, Google Bard seems to be watching my videos and arranging it into logical chapters. And because I talk about what you tell me to talk about, last week it indicated that 10 minutes of my show, an entire chapter of the show, was dedicated to talking about gigolos. So yeah, I don't remember actually adding that to the topic list. But we have, this is the whole point. We chase squirrels even when they go into strange and dangerous places. And the AI noticed, and it actually auto-chaptered according to that. Maybe I was more animated during that. It was kind of fun. Anyway, Nissan R33Z Tune, good to see you. It's kind of funny. The new time slot is a killer right in the middle of the day. Yeah, that is what that is. I'll be back in July, but yeah. Well, middle of the day. I mean, it could work for some if you're, I don't know, enjoying your lunch break. Yeah, so anyway, podcasts are here. I'm set up for it. They're not fully working with the RSS that you need and the specific type of RSS setup that you need for Apple Podcasts, but I have actually set up. In fact, if you look on my channel, you might even be able to find it. I've added these onto a YouTube music compatible playlist. So if you want to listen to me like in an audio thing in the car, that is one way to do it. So that is there. Since we're talking about the AIs, I've done two things with Chat GPT this week. I'm not using it as much. I wish I had more time to use it. I've used it for two things this week, and they were both, I mean, I get it. Most people seem to go in there and they say, who do you like, Trump or Biden? And then it says, well, I don't like either. It's, liberal bias or conservative bias, or, people are like, trying to get it to say that the Germans were right or something. It's such a waste. It's such a waste. I mean, for a start, I do appreciate that what the technology is. I've been watching so much stuff this week. People both, of course, the OpenAI CEO podcast was awesome. And then there was another person this week talking about how AI is going to end the world, and all these rich people who said that there should be a 6-month pause on the development of AI. I don't understand this any better than anyone else, but I do understand that, look, the LLM technology, fundamentally, it's just an AI which is trained to look at all the text on the internet and say that if you have these combination of words, logically the next word, this word would come after this word and this word would come after this word. It doesn't understand, it doesn't comprehend, it recognizes patterns and recreates patterns, based on probabilities and percentages based on the content of the internet. And, so depending on where it's pulling that content from, if it's coming from fairly reliable and fairly things where those patterns are common and repeatable, it can it can create a pretty intelligent and coherent seeming, and every answer seems coherent and intelligent, even when it's pulling stuff from the wrong places and giving you incorrect information, which it often does. But remember, it's not making a mistake. It's just, it's literally just pulling out the highest percentage of words. So I'm not convinced, while it is spooky at times, And when you use it in the right context, it's capable of doing amazing things. I think looking for it as some sort of oracle at the moment is not the right way to really even think about it. People saying that it looks like general intelligence. I'm still struggling to get my head around whether this is really, I use it and I think it's great, but I don't think it's quite the amazing thing yet that people, and this might not even be the way that we get to a real self-aware computer. Although it is pretty impressive. I use it for two things. I think if you use it in specific ways, it's super interesting, and I found two excellent uses for it. One, I went to another Spanish language meetup, and I tell you, for those of you who are learning Japanese and are in Japan and struggling with Japanese, and and I must admit, this is another thing. If they get the multi-track audio, I will dub myself and put up an audio version of this. I speak comfortably in Japanese. In fact, I speak most of my day in Japanese normally when I'm in Japan. It's just the reason I don't do the one. I like you all engage with me better, which makes this more fun. Having the engagement, Japanese people don't engage as much, but I do get more views if I put videos up in Japanese. But I just decided for efficiency not to do things in Japanese anymore. But I've really forgotten. I haven't gone through that struggle of wanting to express myself and not having the words and being exhausted all the time. I went through that a lot in the first few years in Japan, and I don't feel it anymore. It's just the same as, anyone. You might know someone who's moved to the country that you live in who, came from India or came from China, and you can't think of them as anything other than a native speaker who's, set up and is practically a local in the country that you're in. And I'm kind of in that situation in Japan. So it's actually been really nice in a way. In a weird way, it's nice. I went to another Spanish language meetup this week, and to be in a situation where I'm exhausted and I'm struggling, and the thing is, I have a degree majoring in Spanish. I got pretty good at it, including deep vocabulary, and I know the grammar pretty well up and down, or I learned it, but I just haven't used it. So it's not there when I want to speak it. Although, if I can jog my memory, I can read a Spanish newspaper fine, actually. It generates the recall when I see it. But it doesn't come up spontaneously and smoothly enough for me to have conversations. It does in the beginning, but you get tired. So when I go for a 2-hour Spanish speaking session, I decided before I was going, how do I refresh? There are things I'm going to want to talk about, what have I done in the last week? How do I say I ran a half marathon? How do I say I took a drive and they upgraded my car? And I could be there in the spot trying to remember the words and stumbling, and that's part of the fun. But I thought, wouldn't it be great if I had those exact phrases? Now, of course, you could go put in a Google Translator one by one. But I actually went to Chat GPT and I said, generate a conversation for a Spanish language meetup where I'm meeting people for the first time, and I'm introducing myself, and I come from this background, and I talk about how I did this, this, and this, and make it like a conversation, like a genuine script out of conversation. And it would do both, script it out wonderfully. And again, it's probably because it's based on training materials that include, language and TV scripts and so on. And it generated a script of, good Spanish back and forth with English translations and suggestions and everything. And I could craft it to be the conversation I wanted to do. And I could read that before I went over it. It just helped me jog my memory on grammar points and on vocabulary. And it helped. Didn't stop me from completely just mentally crashing, where I literally, after 1.5 hours, the final half hour, I know that a lot of you are going through this right now, and I've forgotten what this felt like, but I feel like it now, where I literally felt like almost drunk, like I couldn't even move the muscles in my mouth, that I was too exhausted to even try to speak, and I started stumbling and giving up and speaking English towards the end. But yeah, and it was, like I said, it was in a weird way, it was cool. It's just something that's so second nature to be able to speak a second language, and to remember that, to be able to be in that state where I can speak a little bit but not fluently was kind of cool. Like I said, it gave me a lot of empathy for those of you that are learning Japanese, and it's inspired me to go to Japanese language meetups here in Seattle to help people who want to practice Japanese, which I've done a couple of times. It has also been really fun. Because I appreciate so much the Spanish speakers that came to the Spanish event. So Chat GPT was awesome for that. And again, there's no real reason to create fake information on a theoretical conversation introducing yourself. And there's tons of good solid model information for that. Another use was at work. I wanted to do a demo. I'm a lawyer, but I work at a tech company, and because I used to work in tech, something I like to do is explain tech to lawyers who don't understand tech. And so I've been doing these demos on how to build simple web applications. And I used Chat GPT. I was trying to figure something out, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. So I said Chat GPT. how would I make an app that does this? And it built the whole app for me, all the code. And I said, put all the notation and the instruction manual in for people who know nothing about coding. And it did the whole thing. It was just like in 2 minutes, I built a full translation app. And again, because it's connected to CPUs that cost a lot of money on the back end, I'm not launching it. I've got a page for it, but I haven't launched it publicly. It'll be for internal training purposes. But again, when it's learning how to code, and there's databases of how to use APIs and how to use the stuff, it's just a wonderful tool, because guessing the word that comes after the other, logically, it's likely to be accurate. And if it's inaccurate, the app won't work, and it does work. So, this AI stuff is cool. I'm not fully convinced that I definitely see it's going to be disruptive. I don't think it's going to necessarily kill us all. I'm not sure what I think about the 6-month moratorium calls. It's freaky as hell, but I am enjoying it. So anyway, that's my take on that. Coming back into the comments, we've got PB. Good to see you, PB. Do I miss the sun? I miss the sun. I tell you what, when the sun comes out, even for 30 seconds, I get now why Seattle people are all like these hikers. Because when you see the sun, you feel like you have to get all of it. Like, immediately put on the backpack and climb up to the mountains. I get it. I understand it now. The lack of sunshine, people told me get vitamin D, and I got vitamin D supplements, but I also found out that you get vitamin D for like milk and salmon. So I've been having cereal and I've been eating salmon, which is wonderful, of course, here in Seattle, at every opportunity. I'm trying to load up on the vitamin D because I don't want to get depressed. But I miss the sun. And my apologies to people who saw my photo of me after the run, and people were saying, someone actually said they saw my very white legs. Sorry. And said, get some sun. And I'm like, I'm in Seattle. What am I supposed to do? But yes, I miss the sun. I do miss the sun. But it's not so much that I miss it. I see it occasionally. It means I treasure it. It's weird. Even like when I'm in the office at work here, when the sun comes out, everybody leaves the office. Everybody thinks, oh, they're going to go walk their dog in a park or do something because it's only going to be here for half an hour. So it's kind of funny. It's generated this appreciation for sun, which I don't have in Tokyo. In Tokyo, summer, the sun sucks. You can't, you want to get away from it. But here, I definitely value it more. So yeah, Kerberos Tenchi, did I see the video you sent me about Chat GPT versus Kishidenpa? I didn't get a chance to watch it. I saw that you sent it, and I think something about Chat GPT giving better answers, which doesn't surprise me. No, I'm sorry. Thank you for the link, and I haven't watched it yet. But yeah, by the way, one comment, including such as here, a lot of people making a lot of comments. If you have comments that you want me to read or respond to, put a Hiko Simon on it, and I will read it. If you don't, there's too many comments, and I'll spend the whole show reading comments. But definitely, just let me know if there's anything there that I should pay attention to. But yeah, I think I'm starting to look at the comments there, and I'm seeing that there's conversations that I do not want to get into. So maybe it's all good. It's all for the best. Men's swimwear. Keep swimming. Thank you for the thumbs up. Dan H, long time no see, Dan H. Good to see you. Glad that you could join. Let's head off to the next one. By the way, I know I've been tweeting less. It's just, like I said, it's been full on here. This is like, I know I try to minimize other subjects relating to Japan, but I do follow a lot of space and science stuff. It's just wonderful. And I've been watching a lot of YouTube since I got here as well when I'm on my own. Yeah, this stuff about like how NASA's gutting funding for Venus missions. I'm a big fan of Venus, and I think the thing is, I mean, we know a ton about Mars already, and sure, of course, we think it might have life there, and that's why we're putting all the the emphasis on getting there. But the point is about Venus. I mean, one, it's like closer, much closer to. Not only is it closer to Earth than Mars, but it's like because it's on the inside track, like you can go there, whereas you can only go to Mars once every 2 years. You can go to Venus like twice a year, basically, because it's like lapping us on the inside. So it's super easy to get to, super easy to get back from. The gravity is the same there. So you've got no problem with like gravity issues. And the whole model that people think is the best way for people to get to Venus is basically getting on big floating like airship sort of cloud. Basically, the idea for living on Venus is that you'd have something like a floating version of Bespin Cloud City from Empire Strikes Back. And I don't know about you guys, but Dagobah, Tatooine, I mean, Cloud City is where it was at. That's where I want to live. And literally, Cloud City on Venus, you'd have the same air pressure on Earth. If you got a certain altitude, you'd have the same temperatures. You'd have like 25 degrees, the same air pressure, same gravity. You'd be over a planet nobody knows anything about because its atmosphere is impenetrable. Now, granted, yes, the atmosphere is made out of sulfuric acid, and figuring out, well, you wouldn't need a pressure suit. You'd need to figure out how to have suits that wouldn't have holes poked in them by by the acid atmosphere. But yeah, you could go to and from there. There would be endless sunshine. It'd be much better than Seattle in that regard. And you'd actually, there's a ton of stuff to actually discover on the surface. Plus, there are these ideas that there might actually even be life like floating around in the atmosphere of the place. And it's super close and easy to get to. And yet we're all ignoring it, and we're spending all this time and money on trying to go somewhere further away and much harder to get to. We're not going to walk around on the surface of Venus. Nobody would want to do that. It's like walking in the bottom of the Kermadec Trench, basically, or the Mariana Trench. Too much pressure. In fact, it's a sulfuric acid version of the Mariana Trench. So no, nobody's going to walk on the surface. But I don't know. It's just silly. We're not going there. Who cares about planting a flag? I think it would just be awesome to be able to go there and figure the place out and figure out how to live there. And all the science that you could do there. So yeah, I'm kind of annoyed that NASA keeps treating Mars like is the place to go to and ignoring everything, like even robot missions to Venus. And we don't know anything about the place. I think it's crazy. Anyway, the big story, of course, coming up. Quick look at the comments. Thomas Morris, I'm sure Putin-san will stop all research on AI for 6 months. But if we're doing AI, I don't think anybody's doing AI research. I mean, possibly there are parts of the US government that are doing that, but honestly, the places that are leading, I don't think are doing anything because if Putin is the motivator for AI research, we're all screwed anyway, right? Like whether we wait for 6 months or not. Chachi, fun to talk to. Well, thank you. Thomas Morris, if someone wants to, says he wants to visit Uranus, walk away. Words to live by. Well, nothing wrong with that sort of thing if it's what you're into. But that would be. By the way, this is probably why I don't do astronomy live. This is why you don't see many astronomy live chats, because the Uranus jokes would quickly get out of hand. But yeah, super interesting planet. Seriously, the unfortunately named, yes, but rotates on its side. It's got it's a cool planet. But yeah, anyway. Subway to Venus running through your head. PB, here's a podcast recommendation you might enjoy. Lex Friedman, I on the topic of consciousness, quite a long one. They're all long ones. I subscribe to the YouTube channel of Lex Friedman. And all his videos are like 2 hours or 3 hours, in fact. And I watched them. The last two have been on talking about AI, have been good. I don't like it when he gets into celebrities. He obsesses a lot about consciousness. I get a little bit dizzy listening to it. Lex, it's like listening to someone on Valium. So I find you can speed it up to double speed and it sounds like a normal human. Plus you can listen to it in just over an hour. But yeah, anyway, let's get into the key breaking news of the week that scientific research has, of course, discovered at least a correlation. They're trying to figure out the scientific connection that countries with more butter have happier citizens. And so, of course, when you have a country that controls the production and distribution of butter and rations butter, people are just going to become irrational. In fact, this is not latest news. I now see this is from February 23, 2019. But this is being shared around lately, and possibly it's just been discovered that when you have, I think there is a graph here, so when you have life satisfaction index with butter supply per capita, in fact, now I must admit, where is Japan on this? I've got to squint and look at this a little bit. I'll zoom and enhance. Japan probably would have quite a high supply theoretically, but you know what? I mean, when we have shortages, so Haiti, Cameroon, Malawi, Madagascar, I don't know that Cameroon or Madagascar necessarily so bad. In fact, life satisfaction is higher in Haiti than in Madagascar, which is interesting. Where is Japan? Where is Japan? Can anyone see Japan? There it is, just below Spain. So Japan seems like smack in the middle of this scale, where it consumes just under a kilogram and is pretty high. So it's doing well. But look at this. So you got Mexico, Brazil, Panama even, that are happier than Japan and have less butter. So I'm not sure actually that this is really the best example for it. I mean, Australians and Canadians seem very happy. But France, how is France so low on the butter scale? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, Egypt eats a lot of butter and isn't happy at all. So I don't know. It's a little bit suspicious there in some ways, but still good to. I'm glad that someone's pushing this. At least, certainly, the fact that as people saw, some innocent, very intelligent and sensitive people may lose their minds if butter rationing was ever introduced. And I think that this certainly backs up that theory. So I was. Definitely, I think that more research needs to be done into this urgently, as you all know. Yes, but thank you for the podcast recommendation. I do enjoy that quite a lot. Sachifu, based on your interview with Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, yes, the government is researching AI machine learning. It's also popular. It's as popular in research as butter is important to me. Well, people talk about and again, a lot of the AI podcasts now talk about what do they call it? The AI, not the dark age, but there was a time in the 1980s where people sort of gave up on it for a time and all the funding went away from it. And as I understand, even the military research for it is aimed at, it still is aimed at academic institutions and companies to go and do the research for the government. But certainly there is all the money is going into it now. All the best fudge comes from Uranus. That's the name of a town, Uranus, Missouri. That's good to know. Cobra Chachi, I know. Although, maybe that's not true. I just realized I moved the screen. Let's put that back there. Whoops. Technical issue resolved. Believe in yourself. That reminds me of a time a friend took some Valium and then decided to leave you a voicemail saying he felt so good he could drive to New York City in extreme slow motion. Yeah, that's disturbing. Yeah. John Carl, Illinois. Clothing optional or nude beaches is legal in Australia. Byron Bay is one of them. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I know Australia and even New Zealand have nude beaches. Although I'm not exactly sure how that works. Yeah, in terms of, I was aware that they existed as a kid, but I was never sure quite how those work, sort of in terms of the general public decency laws, and I think it was just not enforced in certain places. But yes, Thomas Morris, Saki kara nani zutto Kansai ben de. Am I speaking in Kansai ben? I don't think I am. Maybe I am. I don't know. Maybe that's what being in America too long does. It makes you speak in Kansai ben. Oh, by the way, last night, if you have Apple TV Plus, which I think I got as part of my when I got an iPhone upgrade, it gave me 3 months of Apple TV. I thought I'd check it out. I must admit, I did what they wanted me to do, which is I extended the subscription and I've kept watching it. I watched the Tetris movie last night, and it was pretty good. There's a big Japan dimension. Of course, it's really the story about how Nintendo got the rights of Tetris for the Game Boy primarily, and the heroic Dutch-American sales guy who negotiated with the Soviets to get the licensing rights. But yeah, I didn't realize that the American Dutch guy was a Japan resident who was flying off. And yeah, actually the climax scene of the movie involves like Nintendo executives and KGB and this American Japan resident. It's actually like there's hit a lot of notes which felt kind of familiar to people I know. I can sort of visualize a bunch of people I know in different roles from that movie. And I thought that the Japan parts, not all great, but yeah, the Nintendo parts were in the 1980s setting and everything. It was pretty good, actually. Well, it wasn't not going to win Best Picture or anything, but it was an enjoyable movie. So I do recommend if you have it available. It's not worth signing up for and paying for Apple TV to watch, but yeah, the Tetris movie was excellent, and I would recommend it if you're able to watch it. PB, have I tried any exotic butter? Camel, yak, alpaca, reindeer. You know what? I don't think I have. I mean, goat. I don't know if that counts. I don't know that I've had butter. I mean, I've had horse milk at Mongolian restaurants in Tokyo. Honestly, it doesn't taste like anything. Honestly, it's just kind of bland. Goat, of course. Goat like cheese I've had, which is awesome. I mean, anything Greek or Turkish like that I love. But no, nothing beyond that. I don't think I've had yak or alpaca or reindeer. I'm sure it's good. But yeah. Chris Rodham, good to see you, Chris Rodham. Oh, and awesome to meet Chris Rodham. Chris Rodham said, "Hey, I'm in Seattle. Let's meet up." And we met up. We had a pizza, and it was really great to meet you. And yeah, no, definitely you have Apple TV Plus for Jon Stewart and Ted Lasso. I didn't know this Jon Stewart was on TV Plus. I should check that out. I've been watching Ted Lasso as well. Tetris was good. It was worth a watch. I recommend it. Yeah, this is interesting. The highway from Tokyo to Nagoya will have a self-driving lane next year. I think that there's a thing here. It's a nice reminder that I think it was what, level 4 self-driving? The first car company to get certified for this was not Tesla. It was Mercedes-Benz. And the cars that have it implemented, by and large, are still not electric. It's something I think people associate because Tesla makes such a big noise about self-driving cars, even though their self-driving cars keep crashing and killing people. But, you know, the other companies are looking at this technology, and I've been talking for a long time that if they ever figure it out, it's going to be this hugely wonderful, transformative technology that excites me. And it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to EVs, which of course are not taking off in Japan quite in the way that they are. I mean, I don't know how much they are in other countries as well. I must say, where I am here, Teslas in Japan are kind of, oh, a Tesla, it's kind of exciting. Here, it's every second car is a Tesla. It doesn't feel quite as exotic to see one, although I still do want to drive one. I don't want to drive it, honestly, as an environmental virtual signaling. I want to floor it and go to 60 miles an hour in 2 seconds. That's what that's what appeals to me. But the self-driving thing, I do not want to use Tesla self-driving at all. But the idea that self-driving is now getting good enough and prevalent enough, and remember, Japan's the country that invented the car, basically the modern car navigation system. There's a wonderful Project X episode where they tell the story of the Japanese car company, which basically would test out. If you've ever been to Setagaya, the suburbs of western Tokyo, the roads are so narrow and maze-like and illogical. That basically the family had experiences of getting lost. One of the designers from one of these sort of satellite map companies got lost in one of these neighborhoods. And so when they were developing a car navigation system, like the acid test for the system was, they went back to this place where he had been lost in a drive with his family before to see if it could handle these roads, which were narrow, they were close together, and they were completely illogical and maze-like. And yeah, it was kind of like this was the way that Japan got the best car navigation systems in the world first, was because they had such testing conditions, but the engineers had really great things to test them on. And I'm surprised I don't hear more about self-driving in Japan in a way. I mean, but because the engineers, are the types of people that will plug away at this and get it right. So I don't know, it's really cool that there's a self-driving lane that they're making. It might just be Mercedes-Benz's at first. But it's good signs that we're heading on the way towards a time where we'll have cars that will be able to do that, take you on the highway. I mean, presumably, it says Tokyo, Nagoya, but presumably most of you'll be able to self-drive your way out of Nagoya, is the joke I always make, that the maglev trains and the self-driving highways will help people escape from Nagoya even faster. Japan asked the UK if they're down with CPTPP, and they said, yeah, you know me. It not quite as rhythmic as I would like. It's gotten a bit convoluted. It's like, I'm glad to see that, UK, they're out dating again. They're trying to mingle with other free trade groups. They broke up. They're still getting over it, but they thought they should put themselves out there, and a bit of a going long distance on the first relationship that they're having in a while. We'll see. I mean, you could say, a lot of people saying they should just get back together with Europe, but for whatever reason they've decided. Well, I suppose we could relate to wanting to hook up with Asia. That is what they are doing. I mean, why not? In the end of the day, I mean, fundamentally, the idea of not, of having minimum trade barriers between all countries, I think, is a good thing, right? Be able to get all that butter into Japan that I've been wanting. And if it's not New Zealand, then have it from why not from the UK? Again, it just makes UK's acting a little bit erratic from this perspective, but it is good news. I don't know what they're going to contribute exactly, but remember, it's a 50 million person country. It's a substantial, and it's a substantial world economy. The fact that America set this thing up and then decided it didn't want to join anymore because they didn't know how to explain it. I mean, Trump didn't want any part of it, and Hillary Clinton, who set it up, disowned it because she didn't want to explain it to voters. Which to me is it's a good thing. Just explain it to voters. Explain, everybody gets more butter. It's awesome. But yeah, anyway, the UK, it's weird that the UK is joining this before China or America does, but tally ho, great, congratulations. More crumpets for everyone. So yes, that's good news. Good to see the UK in that. Quick look at the comments here. Level 3 is currently the highest self-driving level. Thank you for the correction, Cobra Stenshi. In Japan, Honda was the first. Mercedes was in Europe, but still only level 3. Okay, my mistake. So yeah. I mean, level 5 is where you don't even have a steering wheel, but level 3 is where I think you go highway without hands on the wheel or something like that, right? It's pretty good level. Dan H, was I able to follow the Arabic podcast Sade after dinner? Oh, I did not. In fact, on the Red Army stuff in Lebanon, which is fascinating, and they have a podcast with Carlos Gong. So I am going to open up my Memocho and copy that here. I was not able to follow that. In fact, I should. I will add that right after this. It's always hard to capture this during the show, and sometimes I forget to follow up. So thank you for the reminder, Dan H. But yeah, I must admit, I'm always so stressed out trying to keep up with the with my own backlog of YouTube channels. So I'm always really reluctant to add new things. But you've made some recommendations, including Asianometry. And I'm trying to think. I know you've recommended multiple YouTube channels to me that I am fully now subscribed to and bought into. So yes, I will check that out. And thank you again for the recommendation. Thomas Morris, looking forward to cruising on US highways next to 18-wheelers with no drivers. Well, I don't know. I mean, do you trust? Yes, I've also now learned what it's like to drive beside 18-wheelers, including that freaky video last week of a truck that lost its wheel that caused another car to spin in the air. I try to shoot past those things as fast as I can. I don't know, though. I think I would trust probably a well-trained robot 18-wheeler over trusting a sleepy truck driver. Same thing with army trucks. I remember I've nearly been run over by an army truck changing lanes. And if you're in the blind spot of a car that has wheels twice as big as your car, which the Unimog trucks that New Zealand users have, it's freaky. I don't know. I feel like having robots with cameras all over them is an improvement, but that's just me. Anyway, yeah, there's a funny thing this week, not a funny thing, kind of a freaky thing. It turns out that kind of inevitably, so you know how Japan's rolling out, everyone's got to sign up for a social security number, get a social security My Number card. And to this, Japan is now basically requiring that everybody attaches their bank account information, all of their government information is all being centralized on a database, but this is a central index to be able to find, personal records, including your residency certificate for regular residents. But Japan doesn't have a great history of successful development and running of IT systems. I mean, the pension system, where when they audited it, they discovered that they lost like a third of the records, pension records, and the savings records. Japan's a mandatory saving superannuation system, and they discovered when they audited the system that they lost like a third of the records. So Japan has all kinds of trouble historically around these sort of systems. And so the idea that trust us, we're just going to build a big central system that everything will be linked to and that'll make everything better, when they're not really good at making even all the balkanized, not great systems, was a little bit worrying. And almost inevitably, we're finding out now that in Yokohama, apparently at convenience stores, when people will use their My Number card to print out their residency information, their sort of equivalent of birth certificate and residence information, you can get a certificate of this. Typically, you go to the city council and you show some ID and they give it to you. But you can now do this at a terminal in a convenience store. But these convenience stores have been issuing certificates of other people. It seems to be kind of like a random issue. It's like a bug, which they say that has been addressed. It's not clear really how this happened. Of course, people pointing out, however, I mean, you have to use this card with like a PIN and all sorts of other multi-factor verification. So it is supposed to be secure. But of course, people are already freaking out that, some people saying, what can you do with that information? But of course, scammers and so on, if they could access this sort of information of people, they could totally use it for all sorts of nefarious things. But just the fact that the system was doing this, not even nefariously, it was just doing it as a poorly made system that when you ask for give me my address, it gives you some other random person's information. Kind of what people were worried would happen, but almost was inevitable would happen. In a way, it's good that this is kind of out and people are aware of it and they're fixing it. So I'm hoping maybe this, helps to improve quality, but certainly that is a bit of a concern. Yeah. Next story that we've got here is apparently right now the estimated number of shut-ins in Japan, and although there is this term Hikikomori, which I think for a long time was one of these words that people said, oh, it only happens in Japan. They have a special word for it, Hikikomori. But of course, shut-ins exist everywhere. And again, it seems to be tied to all sorts of things, including depression and other sort of mental health issues and so on. The number has gone up. It's estimated that apparently, right now they're at 1.5 million, which is more than 1% of the population of Japan classified as shut-ins, people who have anxiety issues and trouble going outside. With apparently lately cabinet study finding that the pandemic has been a major driver for the increase in numbers, which is also understandable and sad. And again, and it calls into question the again what people can do to help people in these situations. But yes, it's gone up 1.45%. In fact, it's gone up from being, now what is it? From 1.45% to 2%? Of people between 40 and 64. So, it's increasing among elderly and so on. So, no, it's another thing. It's not exclusive to Japan, but it certainly is a problem that people feel here. Just a few more stories at the moment. First thing is that, the latest government estimates are that by 2040, not long away, they reckon there'll be a labor shortage in Japan of 11 million people. And people have been saying, we told you so, you should have had more immigration. But Japan's decided not to have immigration, so this is the consequence. But Japan has, in the last 20 years, gone from 1 million to 3 million foreign residents. So it has tripled that population. It has radically increased immigration. It still doesn't compare, of course, to countries like America or European countries, but it has done that. But there again, going from 3 to 11 is a similar multiple, but it would require a kind of a curve, an exponential curve to get there, and obviously that's not enough. It is a sign of the times, just considering the number of working people. Again, this is just to sustain social infrastructure and tax revenue and so on, as well as the number of people needed in different industries for different sorts of jobs. It looks like the shortages will be the greatest. Actually, the darkest one there, Kyoto, 39.4%. They reckon there's going to be a labor shortage. The prefecture with the least, I presume, would be Tokyo. Let's have a look. Shimane 0.9 is doing okay. Tokyo will be minus 8.8. So Tokyo will be fine. They'll have surplus people, kind of inevitably. They're the only one which is above zero, showing blue on the scale, which in itself is a little bit interesting. I mean, Kanagawa is going to have a shortage, it says, of 13.6, and it's actually like the nicer part of Greater Tokyo. But certainly, Nagano, the darker shaded ones there. Hokkaido's surprising to me, actually. Ibaragi, Tochigi, Yamagata, basically northeast Japan and Honshu. A lot of places there forecast to have labor issues. And where the industries with the biggest labor issues, are expected are, of course, first of all, in caregiving, particularly looking after elderly and old people's homes. Again, I think fundamentally society has to reevaluate how they even, and it's not just a matter of even paying them more, but of course they have to pay them more. The fact that they're crappy paying jobs and jobs that nobody wants to do to begin with, and they're desperately needed jobs, says that the formula for how those jobs are awarded, and maybe who pays for it, whether it's government or whether they, there's some sort of, something has to fundamentally change if they want to have caregiving for elderly. The second one, Shohi Hanbai, so goods sales. Drivers, they expect a 24.2% shortage of drivers. Again, hopefully this is something that the automated driving might help with by 2040, but you never know. Construction, they expect a 22% shortage. At least that's something where you hope to get into the realm that immigration can start to help. But medical workers, 17.5%, another big concern along caregiving. It's interesting. The industries as well. Japan has just got forecast shortages all over the place, including in some areas, like, again, you would say things like, for example, sales, Japanese sales, and customer service and so on. Not always easy for immigrants to sort of take those roles, at least at first. But there again, I mean, they're not going to survive without it. So interesting stats, and it all points to that Japan is probably just going to continue on increasing. They're going to have to increase immigration. But yeah, Sainted Sir, have a good night, and no problem there. Thomas Morris, do you still find it funny that JP think Honne Tatemai is not in other places? I don't know that. Yeah, I don't think that they even think about other places. I agree. They're just those are universal concepts. But yeah, Thomas Morris says self-driving technology was perfected by Elon Musk, just like he perfected Twitter, which yeah, is exactly right. This was funny. This is a TikTok that's getting repeated where this woman shows her an interaction with the Japanese police where they pull her up on the street. I have never had an interaction like this, where they say, "Excuse me, could you please show us the contents of your bag?" Appears to be, in fact, I can't even tell what if she's in Shibuya or anything like that. But it's kind of weird. I never had a police come and say, "Show me the contents of your bag" before. But they ask her, "Show me the contents of your bag," and she says, "Well, I'd really rather not." Says, "Oh, is there something in there that you don't want to show me?" And she's like, "Yeah, my underwear. I just went for a sauna." Oh, okay, so you totally don't have to show us. Please go about your day. I don't know what the lesson to take away from that is. But apparently, if you say that my underwear is in my bag, you can get out of a bag check. And for those wondering, can police just randomly ask people to check their bags? You know what? I'm probably not the best person to answer that, but certainly if you're a foreigner and you're not a Japanese citizen, you are required to carry either your passport or your foreign residence card, and police can ask any foreigner to produce their ID, to ID themselves without any reason. They don't need cause. So it's not the same as America in that regard. I don't know about bag checks. That seems kind of extreme to me, frankly. But the fact that they also ran away when she said her underwear was in there was kind of funny. Seattle, so this is like from yesterday, and I went to the Washington Arboretum, and they had cherry blossoms, and they were looking pretty good. They're not quite like raining cherry blossoms yet, so probably got another week out of it, but nice to see. And today, I went to go see the Seattle Seawolves. Kind of funny, because Tokyo has the Tokyo Sunwolves, and Seattle has the Seattle Seawolves. Basically, the Orcas, the rugby team, they went and played against New Orleans today, and it was a really good game. And I was following their Twitter, the team's Twitter, the fan Twitter account, and they said, "Come watch it in the Washington Athletic Club." And I went there, and it was like members only on the door. And I went inside, and I said, "I'm sorry, can I go through to the bar? There's some people watching a game there." And they said, "No, you cannot." And I went to the Twitter account. They said, "They won't let me up." And they said, "Just say you're with the rugby team, and they'll let you through." And it took 2 goes before I got the confidence to go through. And so I'm with the rugby team, but they let me through, and it was awesome. There was actually a former American national rugby representative sitting in the chair next to me. I got to chat to, and it was a bunch of people and really good atmosphere and a great game. So I enjoyed it. I'm probably going to go along to watch them play San Diego next weekend, which will be fun. And that was my week. I hope that you've all had a good week. We're just coming up on time. Robots will save Japan, says Thomas Morris. I certainly hope so. Phil, good to see you, Phil. Chris Rodham, do I think that robotics and other tech will make a difference to the employment gap in Japan, or will the white-collar workers be put out of work by AI, have to start as caregivers? You know what, that's kind of, it's a little bit, on the one hand, it's a little bit like the thing of people, coal miners who lost their jobs should learn to code. It's a little bit like people who say that. It's a little bit flippant to suggest that, that's something that they could do or should do or want to do. Macroeconomically, it makes sense. Dismissed AI, unemployed, white-collar, workers should go and learn to change diapers on elderly people. There's a beautiful logic and elegance to it that, solve one problem with the solution to another problem, or take one problem and use it as a solution for another problem. In truth, I don't know that I'd want an investment banker changing my diapers. So yeah, probably not that simple. I think. I don't know. I remain an optimist. One thing I do like about Japan is Japanese are open to the idea of robots helping. I think it's something in the culture. And I've heard all sorts of explanations that I'm not sure I buy into about the idea. Some people say it's because of Shinto. The Japanese always see life and gods in every object. And as such, they can accept robots and inanimate objects as things that help them. I think that's BS, but I do think there is a cultural predisposition to being, not quite so separate from, they entertain the idea of automated and things being helpful in lives. I think that's true. I don't think it comes from everybody believing in Shinto per se, but I think there is a thread of truth in that, and I think that Japan is the sort of place which might come up with solutions that Western countries that have more of a creepiness aversion and sort of just the cultural aversion. I think, we don't really self-analyze. Why are we so averse to the idea of having, machines, helping us more? And there's all sorts of stuff in that, just in the same way that, not everybody who has certain values have it because they're Christians. At the same time, Christianity and beliefs from that permeate the culture and the values that people have, including this kind of separation that we have from nature in Western cultures, which is different, at least in Japan, and I think that contributes. So it's based on that I think a lot of innovation, like unique innovation, which has happened independently, in a different thread from Europe, comes out of Japan. And I think that will continue, even if Japan declines. And I think that, the focus, of course, with Japan on elder care, I have no doubt that there are going to be solutions come out of Japan that just will be from left field, things that people don't think of. I think that's going to happen. But I don't know that the investment bankers are going to. They should, but I don't know it's quite going to work that way. I think it'll be, I don't know, we'll see. I mean, again, maybe everyone's just going to become shut-ins looked after by robots. That's a bit bleak, that's a bit Black Mirror, but that's what could happen. And, again, maybe they'll figure out how to have them all happy that way. But then I suppose we could end up in a Matrix situation. So I don't know. There's happy and dark. You've got that happy dark situation at the same time, where even in the Matrix there are people like put me in the Matrix and make me super rich, please. Maybe that's the solution. Who knows? We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out before too long, actually. So hold on for the ride. Cobra Senshi, I was once stopped and asked, "What was in your bag?" You were asked that. Wow. You told them there was a magazine and showed it to them. They were shortly worried. It was a gun magazine. Well, I mean, you're allowed. I mean, it's a legal magazine, so that's fine. Thomas Morris, a room full of Oji-sans and Oba-sans listening to a robot singing "Ue o muite aruko." Yeah, well, why not? I mean, well, it might be fun. Who knows? They could start a sing-along that all the humans will sing along to. By the way, Thomas Morris, I just noticed that you did a Japan emoji, which I didn't know was even possible. So, anyway, we are up on time. That's the hour. I hope that you're all well. Thanks for keeping me company, as always, this week. I actually got a little bit of sun yesterday. I'm staying for. I did some Muay Thai sparring yesterday for the first time in ages. And while I'm fit from running, I'm not fit from crapping my pants and being scared and getting punched in the face. And that's much more tiring. It's funny. The adrenaline goes, and when the rounds end, you just sort of collapse exhausted. I did like 6 rounds in a row, which is a lot after 5. I really wanted to stop, but we were going around taking turns sparring with each other. That was cool. I got some bruises and stuff. That was respectable. So I'm finding fun things to do. Next week I'm watching rugby, and I'm probably going to do the big Goonies field trip, the big Oregon trip. I'm guessing 2 weeks from now, maybe 3 weeks from now. I'm looking forward to that. But I hope that you're all staying well. I hope you're enjoying, if you're in the northern hemisphere, the warmer days, and maybe the cooler days in the southern hemisphere. But have a good week, everybody. Do stay safe. Be, of course, careful of the Rona and all of that stuff. I'm going to be on Twitter as well. As always, follow me on Twitter at Hikosimon for everything. Check out the podcast if you want to check out the podcast. You can see it in the list of playlists on my channel. And when the RSS and everything is set up, that will work with Apple Podcasts. I'll advertise that more. I'll plug that on Twitter at least anyway, and probably again on this channel, but enjoy that. And that is the show. So everybody have a good week. Boom, stay safe. Peace. Thanks for joining. Ending the show. Where is it? It's over here. Ending stream. Okay, see you later. Oh, Darren Schmee. Have a good night. Good night, everyone. Boom.